Hi, I'm Linda Kornberg. Thanks for watching my Learning Teaching Interaction number 2 outline. First, I want to talk about teaching the gospel that we were able to read about in one of our texts. It was just a good review of how we learn, and that it's through the Holy Ghost that we have the truth carried into our hearts. And then it talked about how to study the scriptures. And President Benson said to immerse means to study, ponder, and pray. Reading the scriptures 3 times seems to help get the information more fully into our brains. I think this could be the same with any kind of information you're reading. The first time you read it quickly for understanding. The second time you read it slowly and carefully, looking for concepts and principles, and you pray for understanding. And then the third time you look for additional things that you might have missed the first time through. So I think that could benefit any type of learning. There's different ways that teachers can present or instruct during a teaching situation. They can ask questions that stimulate thinking and encourage student response, plan the discussion, follow the Lord's model, call on students by name, give students time to think, listen to students' answers, and acknowledge the response in a positive manner. So those are things that we can do as teachers to help get our message across in a more effective way. Then we learned about 5 principles of instruction, and this came from Merrill. The first principle is learning is facilitated when the learner is engaged in solving real-world problems, which I think is so critical. It's important to learn, but if we can't apply it to our lives, then it doesn't do our participants very much good. The second principle is learning is facilitated when existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. So when we look at the base of our knowledge and then learn new knowledge, our original knowledge acts as a foundation, and then we can build new knowledge on top of that. Third principle is learning is facilitated when new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. And isn't that so important? Because we often learn things, but we don't know how to put them into practice. And so I think to demonstrate that doesn't need to be physically demonstrated, but to give scenarios and instances that can help the learner to understand how they can apply it in their lives. The fourth principle is learning is facilitated when the learner is required to use his or her new knowledge to solve the problems. So again, you could do scenarios and also give them an assignment to work through the week using the new knowledge they have in their own situations. And the last principle, the fifth principle, is new knowledge integrated into the new learner's world. So you want them to not just walk away from this learning situation and not put it into practice, but to actually integrate it into their own lifestyle. There's no satisfaction quite like success, and this is again from Merrill. The real motivation for learners is learning. When learners are able to demonstrate improvement in skill, they are motivated to perform even better. So the motivation for learners is to learn new information and then to perform better because of that information. I'm going to skip down to skill training for educators. FLEs have the opportunity to help participants gain skills needed for successful marriage and family life. And some of the resources and ways that we can help facilitate that teaching of the new skills is to suggest a family council meeting, role-playing, movie, TV, or internet clips, educational videos, music and pictures, books, plays, and short stories, comic strips and cartoons, games, object lessons, homework assignments and learning contracts, idea reinforcers, and myth versus reality. And as we incorporate each of these into our learning and teaching situations, it gives a bit of variety so that our teaching doesn't become mundane and boring, and it gives different ways of learning, because people don't all learn in the same way. They learn differently, and maybe one thing will grab one person's attention, while another one will need some other kind of interaction. Programming for diversity was one of the areas we learned in this last couple of weeks. And to be on target with materials developed or adapted for homogeneous groups, you have to know your audience, which is critical. We have found through doing intake interviews under the family relations choice to know our audience and to know what their needs are, to know their background, to know what their challenges are and what their desire is to learn. We have to know ourselves, because we need to know our capabilities. We need to know our own feelings about families and couples and marriage, etc. We have to explore our limits and see where we can stretch and learn, so that we can then pass that on to our participants. And then we have to evaluate the program material for diversity and avoid the one size fits all approach, because, like I said, people learn differently, and obviously people have different needs that they have in their lives. So the next thing is, I'm going to share a quote from Wally Goddard. And sorry, I keep looking at my timer. He said, "Our effectiveness in family life education has less to do with the match of our education and experience to that of our participants than it has to do with our willingness and ability to be genuinely compassionate." Isn't that amazing? Again, I want to read that. "Our effectiveness in family life education has less to do with the match of our education and experience to that of our participants than it has to do with our willingness and ability to be genuinely compassionate." And I think that sums it all up. What, as parents, educators, or family life educators, what our role is to be compassionate above all, and then to use the skills that we've learned through our education and be able to impart that to those that we teach. Thanks.